Is that noise?
This land is your land.
President Trump are clashing in Berkeley, California. This video.
This land is my land.
From
California.
This great state of California, one of the most progressive states in America, is on board the political revolution. Thank you.
And good evening. Welcome to Progressive California. Back after a few week hiatus, but we're refreshed and ready to go. Our topic tonight is climate change in California. So who but our favorite earth science congressional candidate to be our guest, Jess Phoenix, running for Congress in District 25 in California. But before we introduce Jess, however, let's welcome back Joe Cicada, who did survive spring break, not quite in the way we would hoped he would survive spring break. He had the flu instead of the fun, but he's back and we'll be having another one of his wonderful rants later. But right now he's going to explain engagement broadcasting and how that works during the show. Joe?
Yes, this is an engagement broadcast, which means that our awesome viewers can ask questions through the YouTube live chat. I'll be the chat moderator during Laura's interview today, so if you want me to see one of your questions, just put it in the chat. Just make sure to put the word question in front of it or tag me in at Joseph Cicada.
Fabulous. And we will look forward to some Supreme Joe ranting a little bit later in the show, providing you're feeling up to it. So now I would like to introduce and have you meet Jess Phoenix. She is the only earth scientist who is running for Congress in 2018 with a very progressive platform focusing on immigration, healthcare, campaign finance reform, gun reform, and our two topics du jour, environment, climate change, and green tech. Welcome to the show, Jess.
Thanks for having me, Laura. It's great to be here. And thank you, Joe.
So just give us a little bit of your, just a little bit of introductory background, especially in relation to how, what you study relates to climate change in California.
So I actually, I'm a geologist, but I've emphasized my career emphasis has been largely in volcanology and natural hazards. I've also been able to do climate change research. I always get invited by my colleagues to go around the world and do some interesting studies. A lot of them are ancient lake bed studies or something called cosmogenic nuclide dating. Science dating is not as fun as actual dating. But this type of testing allows us to see when things like glaciers used to be at their maximum versus where they are now, and also to study when things like landslides happened, and sometimes those are associated with different periods of heavy rainfall, that sort of thing. So these are really, they're useful techniques, and it's still an emerging science too, but it definitely adds to our understanding of the climate, both present and past, and potentially in the future.
Yeah. And you've really gotten a lot of firsthand knowledge of that these days with the fires and then the rains and then the mudslides.
Yes. Yes. It's brutal, and the outlook for additional climate change impacts in California is it's a pretty strong outlook that we're going to feel more of the impacts as the change progresses.
Yeah. Well, I pulled up our first slide is from your website, and where you lay it right out there. The greatest threat to our security and prosperity is global climate change. Period. Scientists agree human activity is a big factor. And when Republicans in Congress deny this reality, they are setting Americans up for suffering. I've studied climate change around the world during my decade of work as a scientist, and I will bring truth and facts to the table. Yay, Jess. I love that. So talk about that a little bit more. I mean, what are you seeing that's going on right now in Congress that you would tackle first if you had the chance?
Well, first thing I like to tell people is that it's not a matter of people who believe in climate science versus those who don't. The Republican Party, particularly people like John McCain, were talking about what we needed to do to tackle the climate crisis that we're facing. And that was in the mid 2000s. It is apparent to me that Trump et al. Actually do believe in climate science. It's just that they have the fossil fuel lobby breathing down their necks, saying we're wealthy, we carry a lot of weight, we walk loudly and have a gigantic stick, so do what we say. And so you have a lot of people who are quote unquote climate science deniers, but in reality, they know that it's real, that it's happening, but they're basically trying to get theirs and get out before without having to take any action to rectify the situation.
Right. So it's a party line, not a core belief. And
yeah, exactly. And it's just one of the problems that is just so rampant in our government today is that everything is dictated by big money and dark money a lot of the time. And so if we really want to see movement on this, we have to get people into office who don't owe anything to those lobbies. And then they'll be free to act in the best interests of the population instead of themselves and their pocketbooks.
Wouldn't that be nice? So you have a plan. You have a plan. It's called the plan. Tell us about your plan.
So, it's basically a lot of common sense. So it's getting back into the Paris Agreement, which obviously would be a lot easier if we have a blue Congress to work with and to apply those well-known checks and balances to the president, that's not happening right now. We really need to be working for green tech research and development. And that's because the way forward in, an era of increasing automation, in artificial intelligence taking prominent roles in society, we need jobs that aren't exported and jobs that will actually solve problems that we're facing as a country. So green tech is one way that we can grow our economy, solve problems, and keep people employed.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later too, because that's huge for your district in particular. What about fracking and renewable energy, though?
Yeah, so fracking is something that when it first came to national prominence, I was open-minded and I said I want to wait to see the evidence before I say whether this is a good or a bad thing. And of course, knowing what I know about the subsurface of the earth, there's a lot of fractures in places and faults, and the faults are not always active right now. A lot of them were they're most recently active more than 10,000 years ago. So it becomes a matter of saying, well, in this area, we don't get a lot of earthquakes, so maybe there are no faults. Well, there are a lot of faults in places where we currently don't have earthquakes. So it's a matter of saying, look, we see that areas where they frack experience more earthquakes. And, data has come back saying that fracking is actually one of the causes of quakes. And I think in Southern California that we have better ways of getting our energy needs met than by fracking. And so I am in favor of banning fracking, particularly in California, but I don't think that we should have fracking anywhere in our country because the hazards and the dangers outweigh the benefits.
I have lots of friends in Oklahoma, and it's amazing how many more earthquakes there seem to be happening in that part of the world over the last few years.
Yeah, very much so.
You also include national parks and monuments as part of your plan. How does that factor in?
Well, I think probably everybody who's watching this is familiar with, sorry, you can see my cat behind me. That's Sharky. He's sleeping. I just realized his tail was waving in the monitor. But yeah, I have a lot of rescue animals. So since I'm at home tonight, a lot of them are popping in. Like a couple of them are poking me right now, but you can't see them.
We like that though. That's cool.
They're sweet. They're small, so they can't jump up and see into the screen, but you'll see them in the background. But anyway, we know what Zinke is doing and what Pruitt is doing in terms of, gutting the EPA, but Zinke is really trying to sell off our nation's monuments. And you see this, it's part of Trump's vendetta against anything that Democrats did before him. So not just attacking Obama era memorial monuments and parks and things, but Clinton era ones as well. And so I really want to prioritize protecting these spaces and expanding them where possible, because this is our heritage as a country. This is something that is, set aside for our kids and our kids' kids and just many future generations, saying that we have these, incomparable national treasures, and they're something that should belong to all of us without a doubt. And They should be accessible and something that is available for everybody to enjoy. So I really want to prioritize protecting those. And in certain places like the San Gabriel Monument, that was an Obama decree. Those are the San Gabriel Mountains that are just south of where I live. Part of them are in our district here in California's 25th. But Obama declared that this was going to be a national monument. Because it wasn't passed into law through Congress, I think Trump is going to try to roll that back. So Judy Chu has introduced legislation to make it more permanent, and I'm fully in support of that. And I think we need to have more legislation like that that fully protects our parks and monuments.
Oh, great. And then the last bit is strengthen the EPA to protect clean air and clean water. And we have a lot of issues with water, both the companies like Nestle, taking more than their fair share. Talk a little bit about what the big hot buttons are for you regarding clean air and water.
So that is something that we actually can all agree on, regardless of party. Everybody I talk to wants clean air, clean water, clean soil. And because those are fundamental things you need to live. And this is why I think the environment needs to be more of a voting issue. A lot of people say that people don't vote on the environment. And I think we can prove that wrong. We see Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, far left folks like coming together and saying, protect these things. They're essential to our lives. And so I want to make sure that, California in particular, we have this issue with the drawdown of our aquifers. We are draining them for a lot of times, industrial or agricultural needs. And that is actually causing the ground to subside or sink in the Central Valley by, I think it's like 18 feet the last time I heard. Don't quote me exactly on that number, but it's over 15 feet where the ground level has actually dropped because you're taking water out. And so the ground level just goes, whoop. And this is something, we know this happens when you take a liquid out of the natural environment container that it has. There's actually Terminal Island, which is down by the Port of Los Angeles. And Terminal Island had oil in it. They drew the oil out of it and the island dropped 33 feet and started flooding. And so they actually pumped water into it to pull the ground up. So we've seen this, and that was, the 1920s or 30s, I believe. And so we've known for a while that subsidence, it happens as a direct result of drawing down our aquifers. Yeah. So it's really, really important that we have good water management as we move forward. And I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but there's some really cool new technologies that we need to be investing in that will get water from different sources. And I think that we've got to use all of our ingenuity if we want to be sustainable with a growing population and with a changing climate.
Yeah. Before we go into that, I know it looks like we've got a few questions. Joseph, I know it's a little early, but there's a couple that I think tie in really nicely. Do you want to?
So Jeremy Elwood asks, you hear many talking about wind and solar, but what's your take on geothermal and its feasibility as an alternate energy source?
It really depends on the location with geothermal. We actually have a lot of geothermal in Southern California. In the Western United States, the continents are still pulling apart. And so the Earth's crust is thinning, which means that you actually can have hot substances rising to the surface. So magma, gases, et cetera. And so this is how we get into geothermal, is when you have an area where there is thinner crust and you can actually get to that. It has to be done in a way that, again, preserves local populations. And I know that, for example, in Hawaii, obviously they have a lot of geothermal energy potential there, but a lot of the local folks don't want big drilling operations and that sort of production of geothermal, the things that are associated with it, in their backyards. So it's one of those issues where I think it has a lot of potential, not in our country as a centralized thing to the extent that it is in certain other smaller countries that are more active tectonically or magmatically speaking. But I think that is something we really need to, it's one of the avenues we really have to be looking at as we move forward. We can't leave any stone unturned when we're trying to solve our energy budget problems that we have.
Good answer.
So there's another geothermal question. Are you a proponent of OTEC for California over geothermal due to seismic issues? seismic issues.
Yeah, seismic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a big thing that we need to look at. I haven't seen enough of the actual data, like comparing the two directly to give you a real educated answer. And, being a scientist running on an evidence-based campaign, I really want to make sure that I fully know what I talk about when I try to explain things. So I haven't seen enough data that would push me one way or the other, but what I have seen strongly suggests that we have to consider seismic as like the number one hazard that'll be associated with that. So it's something that I really would love to look more into. And so that's it's definitely on the to study list. And that's something that I'm going to be doing with a bunch of issues in my campaign. If I don't know everything about it, as a scientist, what I want to do is look at all available data. And that means, talking to other experts and reading papers and things like that to gather the most amount of knowledge I can have on a subject, and also going, I don't know when I don't know. So this is one of those where I can't give you a definitive answer, but I'm definitely going to be exploring it because I think, again, we need to be looking at all options.
Yeah, you're open to new information.
Yeah, totally.
That's good. Anything else, Joseph?
We have a question about water. Some of the richest people in the world control a lot of water and agriculture in California. What can be done to secure water rights to everyone in California?
It's something that we are going to, again, look for different solutions. We need to be thinking about atmospheric water and its potential. We need to be looking at desalination. And we also need to be thinking about how water rights are apportioned. It is a huge conflict north of my district, which is the Central Valley of California. The slide, about agriculture and environment is, shows farming, and that is we have to balance crops that are cash producing for their planters and farmers versus what the public needs and what our water budget is. So it's funny because you can budget just about anything, and there are water budgets that come into play. I think we need to have some serious negotiations. Of course, it's more of a state level issue, but California needs to be thinking about not just how it's providing its water right now, because there's a lot of conflict, but what we're going to be doing, in the future. California has a history of conflict over water. I mean, the California water wars led to some crazy stuff back in the 19-teens and 20s. And, it's something that we have a long history of conflict about because a lot of our state is desert and we have massive population centers. So again, big proponent of looking for alternative technologies that are going to help ease the burden. But again, we have to talk to people, and we have to figure out policies that are not just going to benefit people who are wealthy and can, buy their way to what they want.
Right. Well, that leads into also the topic of agriculture in California. I know that your particular district isn't terribly agricultural, but that is a huge industry in the statewide. And I know there's been lots of talks about rethinking the crops that we grow and how we grow them to maybe thinking of less water intensive, and also the impact on the land from chemicals and pesticides and fertilizers and things, which are all part of the whole ecosystem. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I actually supported an amendment to the Democratic Party platform here in California that actually urges the party to help be a proponent for reducing animal agriculture. So to lowering the amount of animal agriculture, factory farming that we see, because that is one of the most water intensive things that we do is raise livestock for food consumption. And, I say this, and of course, there's always a danger. People will say I have the radical vegetarian agenda or vegan agenda because I'm a vegetarian. I have been for 14 plus years now. But it's just a common sense thing. We need to, with the growing population, we're not going to be able to eat and sustainably eat the same amount of meat that we do right now. So we need to rethink, as a society, what we're going to do with our future in terms of farming. And I think one of the biggest changes we can make is by shifting away from shipping produce and goods over long distances, putting so much emphasis on meat. I think that's something that if we just cut back a little bit, if everybody cuts back a little bit on their meat consumption and buys more local produce, we are going to see dramatic revolutions in what we're able to produce as a state.
That's really interesting because that you wouldn't think. I was thinking in terms of almonds and citrus groves and lettuce, but it's the cows. and keeping the pastures green and the growing all their fodder, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even then, like cows, some cows eat nothing but corn. Some eat grass. And that has to deal with how the animals are treated too. And I come from a family where my mom always says, I don't know what your grandfather would think about you being vegetarian, but he was actually a cattleman. He was from Kansas, born and raised, and ended up going to Chicago, working in the stockyards. And he could tell any breed of cow from 50 feet away and could tell you how much meat it had on it. And he worked his way up, no high school degree, and ended up working his way up to become the vice president of a meat company. And that was back in the day when you could do that. And but he also had a corn and a soybean farm. So I kind of was like, okay, well, I still eat soy and corn. so grandpa would be fine. But no, I mean, it's interesting, but yeah, that being aware of the choices we make on a day-to-day basis, whether it's, using styrofoam or plastic, drinking straws or cutlery, or, whether we're eating meat every day or not. I mean, that is something that everybody can do and make conscious choices about. And it seems small, but it spreads and it grows. And like, I've been at tables with people and they've brought out drinks for everyone. And I take my straw and set it down and, if it's still wrapped and people go, oh, right. I'm like, yeah, straws are terrible. Like, I'm not going to use it. I can drink out of the glass. It's fine. And, it's, you can influence other people's behavior by your own choices.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Now, one thing we were talking about in the green room is as we move into the idea of green tech R&D, and that is something that is near and dear to your heart, and especially in your plans for your own district. So tell us a little bit about making it a hub.
Yeah, so the 25th district here in California, I'll just say where it is for people who don't feel like Googling the map. Not that the map makes any sense anyway, because we're slightly gerrymandered still.
They rarely do.
Yeah, even though California has an independent commission, it's still a problem. So our district covers Simi Valley, which is Ventura County, and then Porter Ranch, Santa Clarita, the whole Santa Clarita Valley, and then all the way up through Lancaster and Palmdale over on the east to Lake Los Angeles. It's a massive district. And what we have in common in different parts of the district is a strong history of manufacturing. The Antelope Valley is sometimes known as the Aerospace Valley, and Simi Valley had a lot of aerospace manufacturing as well. And so we have a workforce that has a long institutional memory of making things and creating things. So when I look at what we're facing as a society in terms of challenges with climate change and with automation, and food security issues, overpopulation issues, I think that one of the biggest things we can do is to make Southern California, and specifically our district, a global hub for green tech research and development. And we can do this by having somebody in Congress who understands how the federal grant making process works and wants to advocate for bringing green tech R&D here to our community. And one of the things I want to do is bring a higher education institution, a 4-year school from the Cal State system to the Antelope Valley. I want to make a CSU AV. We haven't had a new Cal State since Channel Islands opened back in the early 2000s. So it's about time. And right now there's a satellite campus of Bakersfield that's kind of serves a little bit of Lancaster, Palmdale. But when they raise tuition to pay for things at the main campus in Bakersfield, the students in our community don't see the benefit. So it's doesn't really serve us. And I would love for this CSU to actually have their signature programs be green tech and of course cyber as well, which just falls under kind of the new way of doing tech.
Right.
And I think that we can go and advocate for that at the federal level, and then that will help get it through the state appropriations committee, which is where these things usually go to die. So if you have a partnership between the federal folks, the state folks, and the local folks, you can see a lot of great change. And we have the infrastructure to make things. We have the great minds to do the design and development that we need. And there's no reason why we shouldn't have our community be a destination where people come to learn and study and get jobs. And we can turn ourselves from a commuter district to a district where people want to stay and raise their families, and they want to come to festivals and really enjoy all the natural beauty that we have here. Because
festivals?
Yeah, festivals. I really want to bring a green festival to our community and have it, cover green tech, where we have like Makers Fair, kind of, that sort of exhibition that people have when they show what they've designed and innovated, and then also have music. I've been talking to some folks in different bands that already do festivals who say this would be great. So we could basically have a Coachella but here in our community, and really turn things around, because I see a lot of potential in our community, and it's just we need to recognize that. We need to have vision if we want to tackle these big picture problems.
Yeah. Would that include the cannabis industry as well?
Yes, it would. Because that is something that is big and growing. And if you look at the way that, that all sorts of green are changing our climate politically and culturally, then it only makes sense to incorporate this if you're looking at it from a pragmatic business approach. And I say this as somebody who, this is funny, I had FBI agent parents. I have never tried drugs at all. So it's people are like, "Oh, are you pothead?" I'm like, "No, not me." But I can see from an economics perspective why California needs to be at the forefront of all types of green development.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, we were debating when we've got this wonderful video that you did that's very inspiring. I think I'd like to, if that is ready to go, John, love to play that now, and then we'll do some closing thoughts about why have a scientist in Congress.
All of this with the global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay? It's a hoax. So here, Mr. President, catch this.
But I know we're talking about climate change. Well, I don't know that is a resolved issue in science today.
One of the main reasons I wanted to run for Congress is that I realized that we don't have scientists represented in our government at the highest levels. When I work on active volcanoes, you are literally at the mouth of hell. It is a fiery inferno, and you are there to do a job, and you have to make sure that the whole crew is safe. Everyone is responsible for everybody else's safety. And to me, that's how I see taking on the challenge that we're going to see with climate change. We will see more hurricanes, more flooding. Out here in California, we're going to see more wildfires. Got a brush fire here. I saw a plume of black smoke coming up as we were going up the 210. And I said, that's a fire, and this is hot, this is bad. And then as we drove past, the flames were at least 50 feet high already. And I mean, I could see them, and I was like, that is an angry fire.
It was about 2 o'clock. All of a sudden, I hear my wife running down from the side of the house screaming, "We gotta go, we gotta go!" So I come out to the backyard over here, and I look out here, and this whole valley just was on fire. I grabbed some shovels and went down there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't know how firemen do it, because I was soaking wet. It was so hot down there. Bottom of my soles on my tennis shoes were melting.
Wow.
All I could think of was my house was going to be gone.
But even that night...
I want to give you a hug. I'm so sorry. Yes. You can't control the weather, but what you can control is how you deal with it and how you decide to push on. So we need to get people in office who not only accept the science, but believe in the science and say, look, we can solve this by mitigating and adapting. We can become the global hub for green tech innovation. And that's the future that I see. We're creating jobs, we're sparking growth.
But I'm hopeful because right now we have the opportunity to put new leaders into office who are bold and courageous and able to take on challenges like climate change.
Because America is its best when we have a massive, overwhelming problem to face. We put a man on the moon. We worked our way through the Depression and the Dust Bowl. We got through World War II. And that's what America is built on, overcoming these massive challenges.
So it's time for us to do what we do best as Americans and rise up.
I love that. I love that. Let's go into that's such a great idea. Why have a scientist in Congress? So I pulled out a little bit from your website about how you talk about the training in the scientific method. Maybe you just walk us through that a little bit. Why you think scientific training would be good for a congressperson?
So I think I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier when I said that scientists are used to looking at all available data in order to make analyses about problems. What we really do, what the scientific method really is at its heart, is a process of removing uncertainty. We like to, come up with our hypotheses and then start to test them by removing uncertainties. And that's how we work towards finding truth and what is fact. And we use evidence to do that. So I think that having people in Congress who are used to being methodical about how we look at information and how we analyze problems, that is going to be a real asset in Congress when so many people, including Steve Knight, who I'm running against, he actually says that he legislates based on his religious beliefs. And we have a little thing called separation of church and state. So I think that having somebody in, and Knight is on the House Science Committee, by the way. So having somebody replace him who's an actual scientist would go a long way to making sure that our policies are fair and they are evidence-based and, grounded in reality.
It sounds like a good skill set for Congress for me too. So excellent. So we've got a couple events coming up on your calendar that we pulled out. You're going to be participating in, looks like next weekend, in the March for Science 2018 in Los Angeles. And tell us a little bit about that.
I spoke last year at the march and here in LA, and it was a fantastic experience. And I got asked to speak again. So I'm really looking forward to it. They're not having a march this year. They're having a rally and an expo. And because the march was, it's logistically a little difficult to get people marching all around downtown LA. So this year, let's do a big expo. It's at Pershing Square in downtown LA. I don't know if it starts at 9, but I know I'm supposed to be speaking sometime between 10 and 11. So if you're in the LA area and you want to come down and support, that'd be great. And you have a chance to talk to me afterwards. And there's going to be so many great speakers and really cool activities and tents that you can check out, different science and technology, whether that's university programs or student programs or whole family programs. So I encourage everybody in SoCal to make your way to a March for Science.
Yeah. And that's this coming up Saturday. Then the following Saturday, the 21st, you've got a meet and greet in Lancaster, your local area.
Yeah, it's there's going to be a fish fry with a suggested $10 donation. So that is, if you like fish, or if you don't eat fish but you like the way it smells, you can go to that, and you can definitely you can meet up with us and talk to people who work on my campaign, volunteers as well, and I'll be there.
Great. And the last one we've got is the Women and Minorities in STEM event that's coming up in May. And all of these, by the way, that I was very good and got everything. All these links to her events are in the description of the video. So if you want to find out more, but tell us about that Women and Minorities in STEM. That sounds great.
Well, I was invited to speak at that one, and I think it's just so important that we continue to look at where the future of science is going. And my nonprofit, Blueprint Earth, that I founded and run with my husband Carlos, we actually get a lot of people who are, we get them into field science, so environmental science research, and there are people who you don't think of when you think of what a scientist looks like. It's not an old white guy in a lab coat. No offense, a lot of my best professors were old white guys who could really rock a lab coat. But now science is changing, and so we have 76% women, 54% people of color, and 60% of our participants come from low income backgrounds. And so, to me, I've been living that ethos of broadening the field of STEM and saying it includes everyone, because we are all scientists. We're all born that way, and we need to continue to spark that curiosity in people and give them opportunities, open the door and let people walk through, because they will make changes that will just blow our minds.
Great. Perfect. Joseph, do we have any further burning questions for Jess before
we just have one? Some of the richest, how do you feel about extending OSHA and labor laws to the agriculture industry and raising their pay rate and eliminating 5-year-olds from picking strawberries and other produce?
Yeah, I think that, implementing OSHA laws is for agricultural workers is very important. These protections are there to help people. And it's one of the reasons actually why we need to support unions and the ability of people to unionize, because unions protect people from the overreach of corporations and unethical business owners. And so I actually would be also in favor of supporting agricultural workers' right to unionize and advocating for that. And you see the work of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta here in California to help farm workers. And I think that, OSHA labor laws are there for a reason. And I know that a lot of people have their children picking produce because the parents' salary alone it's not enough for people to live on.
Right.
So it speaks to a larger problem of fair labor practices that we really need to be pushing for. Because if somebody is working, a full work week, if they're working 40 hours a week, they need to be getting paid a living wage. And that is, and even people who work part-time jobs, they need to recognize that what they're doing is valued. And the way that we show people that we value what they're doing, sadly, is through money in this country. So we have to make sure that we're paying people fairly. So that is something that I'm going to be a big advocate for in Congress.
Right on. Well, everybody, go support Jess. www.jess2018.com. Go give her a little money. Go to her events. Meet with her. We will hopefully have you back again and again because you're one of our favorites.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your kitties and your knowledge and your wisdom on a Sunday night. That's dedication, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you too. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Okay, we're going to do a quick little commercial break here for you. We are your independent media. So if you are in need of a tax deductible donation, we know you're working on your taxes. And if you find that, you just need that deduction next year, just get a little donate.uphillmedia.org tax deductible, support one of our wonderful shows, Progressive Oregon, Progressive Washington, Progressive California, We the People, and the Progressive Weekly Review. Okay. Bye, Jess. Bye. And of course, we also have merchandise. So if you are still dying to have that Progressive California water bottle or hoodie, links are in the description of the video. Okay. And with that, I'm going to let Joseph, who has been just dying to have his time on the air to tell his stories. What is new with you this week, Mr. Sakata? What?
Tell everybody what. Now they can hear me. Joe, tell everybody what happened to you. You got sick. Tell everybody. You're terrible spring break.
So 3 weeks ago, I had my finals, and right before finals week, just got really sick, went through my finals, went off to spring break, and just died, really. I had the flu, and it was really bad. I had a sore throat. My throat just completely died out, which meant I had no voice. And I'm the guy who rambles. Not having any voice, not a good thing.
Yeah.
I had earaches because I had an ear infection. I had my eyes were literally bulging out because I had such a bad eye infection.
Oh no!
And it was one of those things where I actually had to figure out what to do, whether I should go see a doctor or not. And I have healthcare from UCR, the University of California, Riverside. I didn't understand it very well at first, so I had to go through this whole entire process of trying to figure out where to go. Do I go to a clinic of some kind? I know there's one nearby my old house because I was back at my parents' place, and I was figuring all this out. And I kind of realized from this whole experience that I got very lucky, and I'm very fortunate, as in I can actually afford to go to a clinic, even if my healthcare doesn't really cover it. And that's such an insane idea when you think about it. Because it's a luxury to be able to consider to go see a doctor when things are looking bad. That's where we are in this country. People go to the emergency room because they decided to not go see a doctor when it was starting to look bad. And then when they do go, what the doctors do is they look at these patients and they're like, hey, you can't really afford it. So we encourage you to go get healthcare first. And then a lot of these people go back and they never come back because they didn't get the treatment they needed, and they sadly passed away. I have plenty of friends who had to choose between choosing to pay rent or to get their cancer treatment. I have friends who have died because of this. That's how insane this whole healthcare system in the United States is. And this whole experience kind of made me reaffirm my litmus test for progressive candidates, which is, first of all, not taking any money in politics. Because let's face it, these Democrats in office who aren't supporting Medicare for all, they're not doing it because they're taking money from the healthcare industry and from big pharma. And honestly, the fact that in our healthcare system, there's a profit motive, those two things don't belong. That's a fucking oxymoron right there. And my second litmus test, of course, is Medicare for all. Because in other countries, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have been like, it's expensive if I go to clinics. What should I do? Does UCR cover if I go to another separate clinic? I wouldn't have had to do that if I lived in Canada. This whole fucking thing is insane. And anyway, so I got better. Obviously, I'm back, and I'm ready to roll. And I'm fucking pissed like usual. So yay!
We had an extra bonus rant. So
yeah,
thank you, Joseph, and we're glad to have you back. So what's on your mind today?
Okay, so today, this morning, I do this thing where I watch Sunday news shows like State of the Union, Meet the Press, all that. So you people don't have to do it, and I can find out the segments for you. This morning, Congressman Joe Crowley went on Fox News Sunday, and he was asked a very interesting question that is probably going to be a theme in this midterm. And let's just take a look. Is the video loaded, John? Or all right, let's play it.
Those seats of House Republican or House races, Republicans running for those seats have run ads that go after Nancy Pelosi. Here's an example from the recent special election in Pennsylvania 18.
Connor Lamb is a Pelosi liberal. His values aren't our values.
Now, that Democrat, Connor Lamb, won, but one of the ways in which he won was that he promised not to support Nancy Pelosi if Democrats take the House and she's up for Speaker again. Is Nancy Pelosi a liability for Democrats in this campaign?
I think it's more reflective of the fact that Republicans are bankrupt on ideas. They don't have anything else to offer except to go after Nancy Pelosi to win elections. If they think that's a winning strategy, they're completely mistaken and wrong. It's not the winning strategy.
I mean, forgive me, but Connor Lamb apparently thought it was an issue because he dumped Nancy Pelosi.
Connor Lamb won because he ran a local election. He talked about the cuts that the Republicans were attempting to make and to privatize Social Security. He talked about what effect the federal government has on local politics, on people's lives, and that's why he won that election, not because of Nancy Pelosi.
Muted, my friend.
Oh, wow. Oh, I thought I pressed it. Okay. So I do want to talk about the main subject here, which is Nancy Pelosi. But before I do, I can't really help myself from really ripping into Joe Crowley here because he's really not the person to say, I think it's reflective of the fact that the Republicans don't have ideas, because there's this really classic clip from a few months back, maybe a year ago now, where Joe Crowley went on Morning Joe, and Morning Joe's Joe Scarborough literally asked him, what kind of message does the Democratic Party have to inspire voters? And Joe Crowley just went on a blumbering, platitude-filled, messy answer, which he literally, I kid you not, ended with the phrase, we're gonna do things. No policy substance, no policy ideas whatsoever, just saying, if the Democrats gain back power, we're gonna do things. He's a ridiculous guy, and he's of course the congressman from New York's 14th district. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Justice Democrat, running against him. Really go help her out, guys, if you guys can. Joe Crowley's already trying to rig the election against her. So moving on from that. So Nancy Pelosi, that's the subject of the day here. Is Nancy Pelosi the Dems' liability? To which the answer really is, yeah. Yes, she is. Yes, she is 100%. There's really no other way to go around it. And like, even if you're not progressive, you don't want to be associated with her. Like the most recent polling data that actually polled this, according to that, Nancy Pelosi's approval rate, 29%. 29%. Donald Trump says, they're always like, oh, he's at 39%. His approval rate is so low. Look at Nancy Pelosi. She's the Democratic minority leader, the opposition against Trump, supposedly. And she has an approval rating of 29%. The whole fucking country hates her. And the Republicans are, of course, going to use that. And then when Democrats try to stay away from her, people like Bill Maher come out and they're like, Democrats should be supporting fellow Democrats. Well, further proving that he's a partisan hack. But from the progressive side, of course, we want to not only distance ourselves from her, we want to go after her. Because guess what Nancy Pelosi's records involve? It involves not being for single payer, not being for college for all. She's praising Trump when he's bombing Syria, which she might be doing again because it looks like we're getting back into Syria, which is not good. She's backing anti-abortion candidates, even though they're anti-abortion candidates. She had an opportunity to fight for Medicare for All, by the way. Instead, she passed a right-wing healthcare plan known as the Affordable Care Act, or in some places known as Romney Care. That's Nancy Pelosi right there. And if you go look at the Summer for Progress, which has this nice little graphic, which shows Nancy Pelosi's record even further, John, you can like zoom that out. It shows that the only thing on the People's Platform that Nancy Pelosi has actually co-sponsored is minimum wage, HR 15. Nothing else. Nothing else. And John, there's the second clip that. So, like, can you load that up? Or okay, so this is from Thursday, where she was holding a town hall, the Trump tax town hall, and someone in the crowd decided to ask her about SB 562. So let's take a listen to Nancy Pelosi's supposed response there.
So thank you again for everything, and please stay loud.
SB 562, which is the health care for all Californians, only awaits a champion. Would anybody on the panel be willing to be a champion for SB 562 and to get? They can put it out to everybody.
I'm sorry, the event is over, but I'll write that down.
The health care bill, which can get, because everybody's.
That's Nancy Pelosi in a nutshell right there. That's Nancy Pelosi right there. You talk to her about some progressive issue, she'll just smile at you. Do nothing else.
Wiggle her shoe.
Yeah, wiggle her shoe. Yeah, exactly. And this is the most ironic thing about this. Nancy Pelosi in the past has been asked about the Medicare for All bill. She's continuously saying, oh, we're not ready for it, and we never will be. But then one of the response she gave was the comfort level, quote, the comfort level with a broader base of the American people is not there yet. It doesn't mean it couldn't be. States are a good place to start. States are a good place to start. SB 562, that's a state bill. That's a state bill in California that Anthony Rendon, that son of a bitch, decided to destroy. Or he's keeping hold on it. Nancy Pelosi had an opportunity right there to actually be principled, but of course she doesn't do that. Because she's not principled, because she doesn't stand for anything, and because she acts progressive and she's all nice and everything, but in reality, she ain't progressive, not one bit. That's Nancy Pelosi right there. And that's why the Democrats, the corporate, the blue dog Democrats are going to distance themselves from her because she's unpopular. And that's why progressives are not only going to distance themselves from her, they're going to challenge her, and they're going to go after her, and they're going to go after her record, and there are going to be progressives challenging her in the 2018 midterms. And one of them is probably going to beat her because she stands for nothing, and it's pathetic. Okay, so we're going from one corporate Democrat to another corporate Democrat. Let's talk about Jimmy Gomez, California's 34th district. Now, this race is actually getting pretty interesting, which is why I'm bringing it up. But before we do, let me talk a little bit about Jimmy Gomez himself. He's currently representing California's 34th district, hasn't been doing it for long. He actually was sworn into office around July last year, because last year the Democrat Xavier Becerra, I think his name is, he's of LA, decided to resign to become Attorney General of California, which opened up that seat. 2017, they had a special election. Jimmy Gomez went ahead and ran for it. Now, when you initially look at Jimmy Gomez's record, he actually looks somewhat progressive. After all, he is a key co-author of SB 562. He is a current co-sponsor of HR 676. And during 2017, during that special election, he did get the backing of Our Revolution. So from the looks of it, looks pretty progressive, right? Well, he looks progressive and he looks reliable until you realize that he takes money from the healthcare industry, from big pharma, from the telecommunications industry, from private prison industry, from the real estate industry, as well as student debt collectors. He's taking money from everyone. This guy's a corporate Democrat through and through. And not only that, when you look at his record so far, which he's had plenty of time now to actually go and co-sponsor progressive bills and actually fight for things, he's not that progressive. Can you bring up the People's Platform list? See, the only green thing over there, which is healthcare. He co-sponsored HR 676. Now, to be fair to Jimmy Gomez here, since this graphic is slightly old, he has since co-sponsored HR 15, which is the raising the minimum wage. But that's it. Those are the only two things. He's not very progressive at all, and he likes to spend time with Nancy Pelosi. Turns out they did a town hall recently back in January at 2:30 on a Monday, by the way. Which is how you know they didn't want people to come, because you want schedule town halls on the middle of a fucking workday. You would do it later, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. But these people, they don't care. They don't want people coming in. They just do it for show. And that's what Jimmy Gomez does. And sure, some people can make the defense that he co-sponsored HR 676, so he must be for Medicare for all. But guess what? Co-sponsoring is easy. Co-authoring is easy. When it comes to action, Jimmy Gomez has done nothing. Jimmy Gomez didn't come back when SB 562, one of the bills he co-authored, got smashed by Anthony Rendon. He didn't come back to say, hey, Anthony, you better do your job here. No, he's been silent. When it comes to HR 676, is he pushing his buddy Nancy Pelosi to do something about it? Of course not. Corporate Democrat through and through. Now, do we have a progressive running against him? We do, actually. It's a Green Party candidate, a progressive by the name of Kenneth Mejia. Now, he's a corporate free candidate, and this isn't his first time running. This is actually his third time. He ran once in 2016 as a write-in candidate, a Democrat. He actually got over 1,000 votes, which is actually pretty impressive as far as write-in candidates go. In 2017, during the special election, he actually ran as a Green Party candidate because he decided that the Democratic Party just wasn't for him. Good on him, by the way. And he came in 7th out of the 23 candidates running in the primary. He beat independents, libertarians, and a whole ton of Democrats who were running in that race. Came in 7th. He has support. He has a lot of support, actually. And then when you look at his policies, he's very progressive, like any other Green Party candidate. He's for the Green New Deal. He supports Medicare for all, HR 676, and he's willing to fight for it. He's been calling out Jimmy Gomez on this whole entire bullshit thing that he's doing right now. He's for ranked choice voting. He's for canceling the student debt. That radical idea. Yeah, we can create a bunch of bombs, but we can't cancel student debt. No. He's for rent control. He has actual solutions to housing and homelessness. And because his district is California's 34th, which includes places like downtown LA, Koreatown, Lincoln Heights, Eagle Rock, those places that are currently dealing with the housing situation, he's prepared to face them. He's prepared to propose solutions to them, and he's prepared to fight on their behalf. And he does have grassroots support once again. Look at his crowd pack. His goal was $25,000. Right, so far as of this afternoon anyway, he raised $24,158. And you might say, he's reaching his goal, but that's actually really impressive because a lot of Green Party candidates, and I'm not going after Green Party candidates or anything like that. I love them. They have a fantastic platform, but they do tend to struggle. It's always an uphill battle when you're running, even in a progressive state like California. And this guy, probably thanks to the fact that this is his third time running, he has some support already out there. He has name recognition. He's raising a fair amount of money. And he's also getting progressive support. I mean, he's already part of Gale Force, which is something that Adriel Hampton mentioned when he was on a few weeks ago. He's part of Gale Force. He's also gotten support from Dr. Jill Stein in the past, and I think Dr. Jill Stein will come out again and campaign for him. This guy's a true progressive. It's really exciting. And you might be saying right now, well, Joe, you're excited about a Green Party guy, and that's it. That's the whole entire story. No, it's not. Because what's really interesting here is the number of candidates running in this race right now. There are only 3 candidates running in this race. We have Jimmy Gomez, the incumbent, the Democrat. We have Kenneth Mejia, the Green Party candidate, and Angela McArdle, the Libertarian candidate. No Republicans in this race, no other Democrats, just 3. And if you don't know about the California's crazy voting system, we have the top 2 primary system, which means that all these candidates, doesn't matter what party they run against each other, and the top 2 go on to the general. When there's only 3 candidates there, and especially when there are no other Democrats there, getting into top 2, that's a real possibility right there. And since there's only 3 candidates, there is no such thing as, oh, you're dividing the liberal vote. Oh, you're trying to steal things. There's none of that. Like, you look at some of these other races, California's 49th district, for example, that's Daryl Ice's district. There are so many Democrats running in that race right now. And the most progressive guy in that race, in my opinion, is Doug Applegate. But people are telling him to drop out because they're like, you're splitting the vote, man. We need you to drop out. We don't want another Republican replacing Darrell Issa. We have a real opportunity here. We won't have that bullshit nonsense talking point here because there are only three progressive candidates. There are only three candidates running, and one of them is progressive, the other is a fake, and the other is a libertarian. We have a real opportunity here, folks. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Kenneth Mejia, I've been following him since he ran in the special election. I think he's the fucking real deal. I really do. He has the grassroots supports and he's putting in the work every single week. You see this guy out there. He's campaigning. He's gathering. He's doing phone banking events. He's doing all these different things. He's fucking active as fuck. And he has a grassroots campaign. Since he doesn't even have an office, they are meeting up at cafes and at parks and planning things out. That's a literal grassroots campaign right there. And you listen to this guy. This guy's also smart. He knows what he's talking about. He's got these things. And maybe I'm going a little too far here, but I think this guy in a few years, if he gets into Congress, gets some experience, leads the Green Party a little bit, I think it's possible that he might be running for president on the Green Party ticket. That's how much of a fucking real deal I think this guy is. And imagine the Greens taking this blue district, the solidly blue district, supposedly. Imagine the message that's going to send to that two-party system. Imagine the message that's going to send to the Democratic establishment right there. We have a real opportunity here. There is so much potential here. I encourage everyone to go check out, do yourself a favor, go check out MejiaForCongress.com. And Real Progressives recently did an interview with this guy too. Listen to it. There are older interviews with him from his past election runs with the Jimmy Dore and Tim Black. Listen to them because this guy is fucking amazing. And I think we should all support him. I really do. If you're progressive, I really do. And if you like him, maybe not as much as I do, because I'm fanboying here a little bit. But if you like him, if you can spare a few dollars, give it to him because he can really use it. Because remember, he's up against Jimmy Gomez, a corporate Democrat with all that money behind him. And on that happy note, this was your news for the week.
Well done. And we are trying to reach out to Kenneth to get him on We the People so that we can have a nice long chat with that boy because he looks like he's the real deal. Thank you so much, Joseph. Excellent. Well done. Well, we are wrapping up our show for this evening. Next week, Joseph, before you go, I'll let you say who is going to be our special guest and why.
Yes. So next week, we are going to have the amazing comedian and political commentator dude, Ron Placone. Yes, Ron Placone's coming on our show to talk about municipal internet net neutrality. And if we do have a bit of time, I do want to pick his brain on what he thinks about the 2018 midterms. Are we going to have a blue wave? Are we going to be progressive? He's a really cool guy, and he was really nice enough to agree to come on to our show. So really looking forward to it. And don't miss it, guys.
Great. And the week after that, Housing Crisis in California with Michael Bracamontes. That isn't quite confirmed yet. Michael, if you're watching, that's really when I want you to come on. So stay tuned on that. And with that, that's our show. We have chosen a long-term favorite of our closing songs tonight. We thought it was appropriate. Thank you, Joseph. You did amazing. Thank you, John, as always, for your everlasting wonderfulness behind the scenes there. And we are going to go out with Symphony of Science. We are all connected because, damn it, we are. Thank you, everybody.
We're all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically.
I think nature's imagination is so much greater than man's. He's never gonna let us relax.
We live in an in-between universe where things change alright, but according to patterns, rules, or as we call them, laws of nature.
I'm this guy standing on a planet. Really, I'm just a speck. Compared with a star. The planet is just another speck. To think about all of this, to think about the vast and emptiness of space. Billions and billions of stars, billions and billions of specks. The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Across the sea of space, the stars are of Earth's sun. We've traveled this way before, and there is much to be learned.
We're all connected to each other biologically, to the Earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically.
I find it elevating and exhilarating to discover that we live in a universe which permits the evolution of molecular machines as intricate and subtle as we.
I know that the molecules in my body are traceable to phenomena in the cosmos. That makes me want to grab people in the street and say, have you heard this?
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. There's this tremendous mass of waves all over in space, which is the light bouncing around the room, going from one thing to the other, and it's all really there, really there. But you gotta stop and think about it, about the complexity to really get the pleasure. It's all really there, really there. The inconceivable nature of nature. To think about all of this, to think about the vast emptiness of space. Billions and billions of stars, billions and billions of specks. The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Across the sea of space, the stars are of Earth's sun. We've traveled this way before, and there is much to be learned.